Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Happy Doc. I'm always excited to record, and for today's episode, we have a very special guest, Ram Tamang. He is an Ayurvedic medicine specialist. We're going to learn what that is, and he also does high performance coaching. And behind him in the background, you see all of these wonderful herbs. We're going to learn all about that and more. And if you're listening to the podcast, you're not going to see the beautiful image he has in the background. But Ram, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, I am an Ayurvedic physician. Grew up in the foothills of the Himalayas in Nepal. Got educated in J.D. Krishnamurti School in southern India. Went further down to get my university degree as an Ayurvedic physician in South India, and of course, also a lifelong herbalist. Growing up in the hills, the only ways you knew how to manage with health issues and concerns, and watching the people, the folk medicine and family in the house, grandmother working with herbs in the kitchen and the garden. And now in the United States, also combining the high performance coaching, which I think is combines so well and goes so well with the simple principles and the concepts of Ayurvedic medicine. And it's high performance coaching is also more based on the neuroscience. So it literally combines so well and resonates deep into my heart. And I help people with chronic health issues and people who have been dealing with side effects of medications naturally with using holistic medicine, Ayurvedic principles, herbs, and helping change people's belief and change their thoughts, how it's impacting their system.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love everything you just said. We're gonna go a lot deeper into some of those concepts. The one thing I'm very interested in, obviously, from my end of things, is I interview a lot of physicians that are traditionally trained in Western medicine, and so it's going to be great to also speak to you about Ayurvedic medicine and some of the principles. I'm curious, for you, it sounds like it was a pretty natural thing to go into this, philosophical or way of doing medicine because of where you're from. Here it's the same thing. We don't have a lot of Ayurvedic medicine practitioners or professionals. So if you were to teach, a Western physician like me, what are the principles? Like, what is Ayurvedic medicine? What would you say?
It's a fantastic questions. It's not just limited to the physicians or even a general public like all of us, right? But if we are focusing on physicians, I would say the whole concept of Ayurvedic medicine on the treatment protocol goes down to, you're not only ever looking at the disease, but the diseased. You're trying to resonate and understand and go deeper into connecting to the patient and not just the bacteria and the viruses of the disease. In the Ayurvedic treatment protocol, they say there are 4 limbs to the treatment protocol, and one of them is always about the caretakers. The 25% of the treatment protocol goes to that. So, as physicians, as Vaidyas, we are nothing but just 1/4 of the treatment protocol. And the patient has to be empowered, inspired to implement the recommendations that you make so that they can apply in their daily habits. Because if they don't, you can claim to be a great doctor, but the actual treatment aspect of it, the way Ayurveda says, is not truly holistic anymore. Because the true essence of an Ayurvedic physician or Vaidya meant you're bringing the teacher out in them and helping them see and connect deeper into themselves. In Ayurvedic medicine, health was defined as swastha. That literally translated as swa means self and stha means your connection to yourself. So, as a physician, our goal is to make sure we help them see and help them connect to their body from head to toe, to their breath, and to their thoughts, and to their habits, and help them see how the environment, the whole epigenetics of it, basically is impacting their health, and how health is impacted by everything else, which means your relationships, your hobbies, your spiritual practices, and so on and so forth. And of course, the health is impacted based on also your age factor, the disease that actually tends to be exacerbated as a young kid based on your body type, and a mind body type. In Ayurveda, we always categorize that is different than most of the diseases that happens as a young adult, or the diseases of the old age, of the geriatrics. So in Ayurveda, they always talk about the interconnectedness and the connectedness. So that's where it is. I hope I
Yeah.
answered that for you.
No, that was really helpful. I love that. So there's a much more, like we talked about a little bit before, a holistic focus, the interconnection of the patient to what they're doing and the relationships with family, spiritual practice, and their connection, like you said, to themselves. You mentioned that the health practitioner is 1/4. I'm just curious, what are the other 3/4? Is 1/4 the patient? Like what's the breakup there?
Yeah, so 1/4 is the physician, 1/4 is the patient himself or herself, and 1/4 is the caretaker. So it could be the family members or the relatives, the nurses, the people in the hospital. And the other is the skill of the physician, which means the herbs and the quality of the herbs, the potency of the herbs, the seasonal availability of the herbs or the medicine. Is it, how potent is it? Sometimes, yeah, it could be the same herb may not work based on when it was harvested. And so the 1/4 of that would be the actual, the herbs or the therapies and the therapeutics, let's put it that way.
Yeah, so you also mentioned something about mind and body types, and I don't think that's something we really talk about in Western style medicine. So I'm just curious, like, what are the? I know I think I learned there's like 3 of them or something. Like, what are the mind body types?
So yeah, the amazing. So in Ayurveda, that's the primary types. Like, so when you say the 3, body type or the mind body types, those are the primary types where it's very like Vata, Pitta, Kapha, or different body type archetypes, and it can be reflected back on Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. I don't know if these words mean anything, but it simply means these are the deep qualities that we find and see all around us and in the nature. Basically, the qualities of the elements in nature. But their combination makes up 7 different types of mind-body constitutional type. That is just to understand the framework of it. But what they also very, very clearly say is that every one of us are very different. Because what works as a medicine for one person may not work as a medicine for the other. So when you are looking at an individual with a disease, the herbs chosen are always different based on multiple other factors, especially their age, their body type, the predominant qualities that's already there, their vulnerabilities, and and then so there's a lot, and then the season. Oh my God! So in general, they say, typically speaking, we're looking at all these other factors and their level of stress. Because I think at the end, we do come down to the point of understanding that our 5 senses, which is, we call it the 5 indriyas, which connects the outer world to your inner world, things that you see, hear, eat, smell, touch, and what touches your skin, they bring about and throw off your connection to yourself, or help you be grounded and help you be more connected to yourself and to the world around you. So stress is similar. So anything that is too much, too little, or very erratic, things that your senses perceive can create a stress response. So that can also throw you off. And so Ayurvedically, we say all of these things, again, depends on your body type. One person's stress is other person's joy and fun and play.
Mm.
It really, so it's all body type. One person's reaction is other person's, why would you do that? Some person would just want to be at ease and be relaxed and laid back and nonchalant about things, and the one with the fiery attitude, or the predominance of fire in them, is going to say, God, how can somebody be that way? And the others, like, look at you and say, why do you need to be that way? There's
Right.
some are dreamers, some are just like, who like to just sit and relax. So it
Right.
all is depending on the body type. So yes, 3 primary types, 7 permutation combination types, and there's above all of that, the individual
Right.
who's got the consciousness. Yes.
Right. And so it almost sounds to me it's very artistic in a way. So you have to kind of understand the person, and you really have to understand your medicines, in your case the herbs. You have to understand like the season. Does it make sense for, is this herbal medication going to work at this time? Is it going to work with this personality type? And so it sounds to me like it can get pretty complex.
Yes. So it does. I mean, there was a time, the Ayurvedic medicine, one could only practice it after interning for 12 hours under the practitioner in the villages before. And then, of course, it's been many hundred years. Now they have universities. So it's a 6 years university where you go really into the complexities of a practice of medicine. And in fact, it is one of the oldest system of medicine that has still been continuously practiced and still being practiced without losing its essence, in spite of all that ups and downs that it has gone through, from the cultural dominance and cultural blaming and all of those other things. It still is one among the most practiced system of medicine. And a lot of the neuroscience and the modern science is actually validating the wisdom of this science today, more and more. So
yeah, I think the big thing lacking in, I mean, I'll talk about myself personally. I think a big thing lacking in training is from the Western side of things, the traditional medicine side that we call it. Although when we really think about it, traditional, you would think the Ayurvedic and other philosophies would actually be traditional, because Western medicine is fairly new. But anyways, in our training, it's we have a disease and we have a medication that treats that disease. We do have studies that show us that certain groups or populations might be better for medication than others. But a lot of times it's disease and treatment of disease. Whereas you're saying from the Ayurvedic perspective, which I find interesting, is it's not just, like you said, disease and treatment, it's disease and the individual who's experiencing that, their personality, their type, and what is ultimately going to treat that person with that perspective, given whatever it is that they go through. I'm curious, without all that being said, do you have some like patient cases or people that you've worked with where they've gone the Western route, it hasn't really worked out, and then through your work, you've been able to find some success with them?
yeah, thank you, Dr. Tyler. I must say that, a lot of the people who come to us come after having tried that. I mean, now it's a little bit more different, but there was a time when I started my practice, most of the cases that came to me was after they have tried everything else. So it was a completely different practice when I started as a young practitioner 18 years ago. So, but things have changed so much now that yes, because nothing has worked, because there's a lot of side effects, and they know that, it is like one medicine, you're taking one medicine and one drug to combat the other side effects of the same, drug. So that continuation. So they wanted to see, and they come in to see if there's any other options. So people are starting to look for an option.
Mm-hmm.
They're not now saying that, okay, medicine doesn't have to be just one way. I think every system has a limitation, and people are starting to understand that. I mean, there was a limitation to the science of Ayurveda too, even though it's been the one of the world's oldest system and a continuously practiced system, it has its own limitations, right? I mean, a lot of the principles got evolved. And today, I mean, the modern medicine, the conventional medicine has so much to offer too. And, but people who come are tired and saddened when they and their doctors do not listen to them. They feel they don't have time for them. They just listen to the symptoms and prescribe a steroid or an antibiotic. When the patient is trying to convey something, they don't even have the time to listen. They don't even look into their eyes to communicate. That's one of the biggest thing that brings them to the clinic for me. And when for me, when I am actually with a client, for me, I always remind them that their health matters, their life matters, and they matter to me. And I listen. And I listen to their story of their pain, physical pain and emotional pain. Because for us, Ayurvedically, you cannot separate the physical pain from the emotional pain or the vice versa. We always treat them together. Health is a combination of the Sharira, Indriya, Sattva, and Atma, which means it is the combination of your physical body, your breath, your mind, your emotions, and your spirit, because you cannot separate one from the other. One will impact the other. So that is the Ayurvedic approach. And when these people come to me, yes, it is one of the main thing is the side effects of the medication, but also the other is the lack of connection and the concern they feel from their physicians. And so I don't know if it's always true. I don't know if it is not true, but that is the story I hear from the patients who come to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, we like to, in my training, we always separate everything, but the interconnectivity of everything I think is really important, because a lot of times, someone has a mental illness, right? But that is separated from mental illness and physical illness, right? So you see like for me, I'm a psychiatry resident. So you're going to see the psychiatrist for your mental stuff. Right. And then you're going to see the family physician for your physical stuff, or you're going to see a specialist. But, in Ayurvedic medicine, it's all interconnected. So you wouldn't even separate it, and you would want to think about it together, because that all encompasses who you're working with.
Very much so. Very much. I think that is one of the strength of Ayurvedic medicine, of always saying that everything is connected. You are unique, but you're connected to you around you. That's why we make an impact. What you say can impact not just one person, but many people, right? And you are a micro of the macro universe, and universally we're all connected. Doesn't matter which part of the world you come from. Yes, the qualities of the nature, a quality, and the elemental qualities of nature is going to be the same no matter which part of the world you go to.
Right.
So that is the beauty about Ayurvedic medicine, where it always says your every system is connected to one another. So it's not just one system. There's a problem with one system, all the other system is involved with that. It's like a family member, right? When there's one person who's ill, everybody in the family, starts to get tensed about it, and everyone is impacted by it, whether we want to accept it or not. The fact is, it does.
Right. Right. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I mean, I love thinking about and hearing about it, because I don't know if we talked about this. I went to an osteopathic school. And so we think very holistic as well. So I really appreciate, this conversation, because I think it is, for example, with me in mental health or something, if I have a patient that has gastroenterological issues, they have like stomach pains, or they have Crohn's disease, or they have, inflammation issues or gut bacteria issues, or all those things, it affects their emotions very much so, right? But I wouldn't be doing my job if I also didn't speak to the specialist. I didn't speak to the patient about what they're doing in regards to that care. What are they doing with their nutrition? what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, because again, like, as you know, it's all together. And I'm very much so with you on all this, which is great. I'm really curious about herbalism, because those are medicines I don't often use.
Yes.
Like, again, I know a little bit about, herbal medicines. Like, I'm trying to think of, I know like kava, and I know what other medications do I know? I can't even think of too many of them. But so like St. John's wort and those types of things. But what herbal medicines do you use most often for like general health and all these things? And by the way, as I'm saying this, anyone listening, this is not medical advice. This is just for me to learn more. But like, tell me a little bit more about it.
So again, the herbal medicine is also very closely related to the human body. And thank you, Dr. Tyler, for just having me here. And it's a passion for me. I've always enjoyed this, what I do, and probably, I don't know if you can hear it in my tone, but I'm very passionate. I believe in it, and it has worked. And so for me, like when I think about herbology, herbs, it's the direct connection to your humans. We have such a symbiotic relationship if we think about it. Throughout the history of time, and even today, if you just pay attention, animals have survived, and animals heal from the plants in their vicinities and around them. Right? There is that symbiotic thing. So what for me herbs means is that there are so many things that we look into herbs. But when I go back into the essence of herbology and Ayurvedic medicine, they are not only looking at the active ingredient or the biochemicals in the plant. Yes, it is there and it has its value. And I mean, so there are moments when I also explain it to the patients using those terms. But what is really most important, fascinating for me is, again, the bioenergetics of the plant, which means, is it heating? Is it cooling? Is it drying? Is it moistening? Is it lightening? Is it creating heaviness? Is it going to create a flow? Is it going to stop the flow? Is it, having a roughening effect or smoothing effect? So there are qualities, you go into, and each of these, and above all of that, the other thing about it is the taste of the herbs, because out of the 6 tastes, it has a direct impact on your physiopathology, the pathology or just the physiology, and also the neurotransmitters, the neurology, and every system. So just the simple taste could alter your biochemicals. And Ayurvedically, we say that's one of the first qualities, the taste. There is the potency or the aftertaste, which means the taste after it has gone through the complete metabolism in the body. So we look at it, we call it the vipaka. That is after the metabolizing, after it has been digested, then the effect of that in the system. We call it the vipaka. And the virya is the potency and the efficacy of the plant, which means, is it really nourishing or depleting? Is it, is it heating, or is it creating or, cooling effect? So is it expanding or constricting? So all that would be the potency. And then there is also the special effect of every plant. So we're looking at that. And also we say, one is the bioenergetics, which is what I just explained. And then you have the biospiritual connection of the plants to the life that you're going to be helping and treating.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so interesting to hear you talk about it, because again, in Western, or the medicine that I've learned, we took like you said, the active ingredient.
Yes.
We took the one ingredient that worked in the herb, and we say this is what it treats, right? Yeah. And we do that with lots of things, right? And we highly concentrate it, and we find the ingredient that's going to help, and we make it very analytical. And then meanwhile with herbs, like you said, there's it sounds like every herb has its own character.
They do.
And so
yes, they do.
Yeah. And it's and they have it's their own personality, and it's like, that does this personality or character fit with this person? And so it's very just as you're speaking about it, it's a completely different world of. It's not about one thing; it's about the combination of things and how it's going to work with your combination of things. And I just even as I'm listening, it's just such a different way of looking at health, which I find very fascinating.
Yeah, and Dr. Tyler, what happens is when we are looking at the herbs, one, in Ayurveda, there are literally hundreds of classical formulations for each different body types, issues, and they had mentioned a lot of these diseases. Even there, the formulations are different for different disease, for the different body type of the same disease. And what we also talk about it is the whole herb, the advantage of a single herb and the disadvantage of just a single herb. Because all of these in Ayurveda, they do talk about this herb is the best herb for this particular skin condition, but combined with this, it is working faster and reduces the possible side effects of that, negative effect of that, which simply means it has a certain quality, it works on this condition, but these qualities may impact and increase a certain quality. Like if it is, for example, garlic. Let's take a garlic. I mean, we do know that high blood pressure, garlic is supposed to be really beneficial. And people always say, oh, I thought garlic is very good. But Ayurveda also says that very clearly that different, high blood pressure, they call it rakta chap, high blood pressure, you can use garlic. But if you are a person with a very sensitive internal vulnerability of internal bleeding, which means excessive fire, excessive heat, acidity, ulcerations, and you already have that, you would never touch garlic. You would use a completely different herb in order to help the blood pressure. Like it's the same with the turmeric. Turmeric can be, now today it's like the active ingredient curcumin, right? It's anti-cancerous, anti-inflammatory, blah, blah, blah. But in Ayurveda, turmeric is used in combination with all other herbs for so many wide range of things. It works as antibiotics, antiviral, antiseptic, antihistamine. It's a digestive, anti-inflammatory for your neuromuscular, musculoskeletal system. They called it, mamsa, asti, majja, shukra, whatever. These are all Sanskrit terms, whatever it means, right? But the point here is, it was always used in combination with other herbs. Just because it has that medicinal property doesn't mean you just take, oh, turmeric is good, let's just take turmeric. No. And then, oh my God, there is this active ingredient, that's the one, let's take that out. Then what you're doing is you're weakening the personality. So what you're doing is not allowing and not looking at the whole complete biochemistry or the qualities and the energetics and the spiritual aspect of that plant and its connection to who it's serving. I know it sounds a little
No. I'm look, I love this stuff personally. I'm always, as I'm listening to it, I'm always thinking from two different places in my mind. I'm thinking of, wow, this sounds great, I love it, the personality, all this stuff. And then the other side of me is, what is the American or Western or traditional philosophy thinking? So I'm just curious with the Ayurvedic medicine. I'm sure there is, but like, are there plenty of research studies in regards to the different herbs and what's more effective, what's not effective? Are there large meta-analyses and different studies of those types of things?
So it's a great question again. There's a lot of research always needs a lot of money, right?
Right.
And where there's money, there's research. Let's face it. But the evidence-based research is that the people are still continuously practicing and people are flocking to it, saying it's a common sense medicine. I would put it that way. Literally, it's a common sense medicine because herbs and spices have been used in the kitchen, in your cooking, in your garden for time and immemorial.
Right.
Throughout the history and anywhere, any part of the world. You go to, like the South America, Amazonian medicine. You go to, China, Chinese medicine. These are all based on the energies. They talk about the qualities and the spiritual aspect of connection to the nature and the plants. So having said that, I think, the most important thing here is really that understanding the relationship here, and that there is the active ingredient, there's the biochemicals, but is there a possibility of something else that you can look at it from, right? And what is most fascinating here is the science. It's a science and a system, but a science and a system who is humble enough to say, this is an opinion, but there could be another opinion. This is a 5,000-year-old science who is saying, we're saying this, but there is a possibility of some other thinking, of
Right.
other school of thoughts, and giving that and leaving that open book to talk. Now, regarding the research, it's really more evidence-based, and there's more and more research is happening in Europe and Indian subcontinent. India especially is huge. Like now, I think they're doing more research than ever before. Botanical medicine is huge in Europe than America. That I do know that there's a lot more research happening and a lot more prevalent of the practice of Ayurvedic medicine in a full-blown, universities of Ayurvedic doctorate being taught in Europe now. It's happening in the United States too, but it's taking a lot more time, and I think toddler level here in the States. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you're saying it, if I'm looking at this from a business side of things, right? It's a lot easier for me to say, oh, this is the active ingredient. Let me study this active ingredient. And then we do the study and it says, oh, look, it lowered blood pressure in 60 to 70%. But it's a lot more difficult, like you mentioned, with herbs, because it's a lot more difficult to maybe standardize with like climate and, like you said, the seasonality and all those things, which again kind of points to the artistic sort of side to things. And then, like you said, also the challenge, it sounds like, is funding to do research on like a more massive scale. I know just anecdotally from stories of some of my friends who've actually used some of the like body types and everything. I know that I had a friend that just changed her nutrition based on her body type, and actually helped her a lot just to understand. I don't know exactly what type she was, but she said that she started just listening to the principles, and I think she switched from like more carbs to something else, or I forgot exactly what she did, but it ended up working really well for her. And I do understand, again, like you said, like different types, are more likely to do better with certain foods or certain exercises or certain hobbies and those types of things. So
yeah. There are certain body. Yeah, totally. I think it's everyone's story is so different. Once we know their strength and their weaknesses, it's about just weeding away that distractions that's really overshadowing that and overwhelming them in their presence of being the best version of themselves. That's the lack of connection to yourself. And so Ayurvedically, they always say, if we could do that for them, the sensory distractions, and today is far more than ever before.
yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, you can't even, it's just like we're all overwhelmed by, the sensory bombardments. So having said that, what it's doing, again, say, when you go back to the simple principle of Ayurvedic medicine, is that it's not helping you connect to yourself. Your breath is shallow, your muscles and your system is constricted, and your thoughts is racing. Now, all that is the ingredient for an imbalance and the first initial phase of your disease manifestation.
How often are you recommending meditation as part of your practice or for teaching patients?
I recommend that all the time. I think it's such a big part of it. You don't have to sit down to close your eyes and say meditate, but you have to increase your awareness of who you are, what you're doing, and what is happening, the impact of that in your system, physically, your breath wise, and emotionally, the feelings. So I think that is being aware of that is meditation. Like I would say, meditation in action, which is literally nothing but yoga. Yoga is nothing but union. Again, it's that whole cycle, because Ayurveda and yoga is a sister science. It coexisted together and it completed the whole science was like the two limbs of the therapeutics of managing a disease. Again, there too, it's been so separated that yoga came.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then like the yoga came in here, and then like, okay, a lot of people, they come there, call themselves, oh, I practice yoga, I'm a great yoga, and then they say like, okay, do you know anything about Ayurveda? No.
Well, it makes sense, right? If you have a holistic way of thinking, that you would merge, philosophy, nutrition, mind, body, spirit, all those things with the actual activity that would be most productive for your body type or what you need to do. That makes sense to me. I just didn't realize that there was that connection.
Yes. But again, Dr. Tyler, you are open and curious about learning. And a lot of us, have forgotten what that means to be curious, to just be curious, like a little child who
Yeah.
just curious to learn and find out.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think, again, when you've lived your life on a certain part of the planet and you've lived in a certain box and you've heard all of the same voices, it can be difficult to stay open like you're talking about. But I think it's a really important challenge, because who am I to say, that my way of thinking, my training isn't the only way to help someone? That wouldn't be fair. At the end of the day, the most important thing in my eyes is it getting results? Is the person improving? And are we finding a way for them to feel better? And ultimately, like you said, come back to their family, community, what have you, and be able to operate effectively. And if the answer is yes, then who am I to say what, so.
Correct. And also, I think, just as a practitioner of any kind, I mean, what I always say is, if we could just ask, would I treat my patient, my family member, and would I treat myself the same way? And if I say yes, then I think you're doing an amazing job and with whatever you do. That's all I would say. Simply, that's my question. Would you do that to your own family members and to your own, of course, I mean, there's always a lot more layers to it. But the reality of saying is, there's no right and wrong in us. I think if we can only be curious enough to say that, everybody has some value to add, and every system could offer something, and it could be like supporting, it could be complementing, it could be just at the end help the outcome of seeing and elevating a life and improving their health and wellness, and make them feel better, and be able to see, just so you evaluate and be able to see that, so that you can help them to elevate from that sense of physical and emotional stagnancy and misery. And if we have done that, I think as a physician, we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about this a lot. I mean, I'm glad to speak to you about this. I think about this a lot because, the American medicine or Western medicine, or however you want to label it, we're very good at keeping people alive.
Yes.
We're very good at like breaking and stopping disease that is very bad, terminal, or I shouldn't say terminal, but very bad disease where we have surgeries, we have procedures, we have things we can do to try to stop it. But what we're not as strong at is, how do we take humans and make them feel full and happy and energetic and enjoy? And that's something I think is really important for us to understand, is what does it take for the family to come together and feel full together? What does it take for our communities to feel better? And we're all struggling right now, obviously, with the pandemic.
Absolutely.
But these are really important questions.
Right. And so, and there too, like, there's so much value, like how you said. I mean, there's been millions of billions of people who've been saved and served, and there is value, and that's the beauty about it. But if we could only say, how can we improve it? If you ask that question and say, how could we make it better with the things that we already have? Like, I was just saying, Ayurvedic medicine is not like, there's a lot of this research happening, but it's evidence-based. And at the same time, it's a common sense practices. Literally, it's a common sense medicine.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it, like this daily practice, one of the main thing Ayurveda talks about is your daily practices and your daily habits. and your daily rituals and your nightly rituals. So which means your everything has to resonate with the circadian rhythm. And today, again, there was a Nobel Prize for circadian rhythm medicine,
I didn't know
right?
that.
Like so, and then there was, you are what you eat. Ayurveda has always talked about you are not just what you eat, but what your body is able to digest, absorb, assimilate, and eliminate, the full process. That's what you are. But then again, there was a Nobel Prize for that. And so all this is a science that is, some things that has already been discussed. So it's such a common sense thing where, say, when it's the sun rises, you try to wake up with it. When the sun goes down, you stop eating. So it's a different kind of a fasting. They talked about all different kind of fasting, but they also talk about a circadian fasting for your body type.
Mm.
Fasting is great, but not great for every body type. So, so that it's a common sense, because when you're cold, you wear something warm. When it's hot, don't drink and eat something that'll generate more heat in the body. That you can do when you climb up the mountains and it's snowing.
Right.
So it's a common sense, right? When you
Yeah. Well, I even think it's so I have like a big passion for exercise. And, when I look at certain body types, there's the runner, right? There's the long distance runner, right? There's the lifter, right? There's the
Yes.
person that's heavier but slow, right?
Yes.
And then there's the type in between, right? We call like the ectomorph, the mesomorph, the endomorph, right? But
Very
you
yeah.
but you wouldn't tell a power lifter to go do a 10-mile run. They could, but it would be very difficult. And so like you're talking about, again, the way we recommend for certain types of people, we really do need to look at the person. If there's something I could take away from this conversation, from the treatment side of things, or from anyone listening, you got to look into yourself to try to figure out what it is that you need to do to heal yourself. And the way you heal yourself might be different than the way your friends do, or even certain people in your family do, or what have you.
Absolutely. So you just nailed it so well. And, I think the truth about it is we are always in comparison. But what Ayurveda reminds you is, what's your story? What's your story? What's your nature? What's your prakriti? Which means, what's your, your nature is what is your story? Like, what's your lifestyle? So what it comes down to. And so, it really helps you to look into your own habits. Literally, that's what I meant. Your habits, your practices, your rituals. And so that, I think you so beautifully summarized it, I think. Yeah.
Well, thanks. No, I appreciate that. So look, I think, another aspect of this, and we didn't really get to it, but maybe we can have another conversation to discuss it. I think the other aspect of this, I think, is really important, is the high performance.
Yes.
Because we were kind of touching on the health aspect, which I think is important. But the other aspect, which we kind of alluded to before, is you're also working on high performance coaching. And I think that kind of fits into those routines, those habits, and having the mindset. So, Ram, I'm going to ask you a question. Would you be open to maybe having another conversation just to focus on the actions, the behaviors, the coaching, the high performance part?
Absolutely. It would be an honor and a pleasure. Yes, absolutely, Dr. Tyler. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, no, I mean, I really appreciate it. We really focused on the kind of Ayurvedic principles, which I think is a great place to start, especially for me, because I'm also trying to learn that myself. I asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything that you wanted to maybe tell the listeners or anyone watching today?
I would say, if one thing that I would, want you to remember about yourself is, try to understand you and try to see, what's going on. Just basically try to make your routine yours, that fits your lifestyle, based on, your phase of life. If you are, literally your phase of life, what's going on with you, accordingly plan your day, so that at the end of the day, you feel like you have owned your day, and you feel like, oh my God, that was awesome. Because you don't want to end the day feeling, comparing to somebody else all the time, and feeling miserable, like, oh, you could have done this, you could have done this, and you'll end up doing nothing. And then it's a loophole that brings you down and makes you feel, and this is the start of your imbalances, we call it, the unease that happens. So win your day, plan your day. In Ayurveda, they call it dinacharya, which means your daily routines. When you wake up to when you go to bed. So based on your profession, based on your phase of life, like, are you a parent? Are you a student? Are you like, are you in the midst of your career, trying to really get to the next level of who you are? Once you know that, combine it in a way that it's still keeping the connection to yourself, and you're also knowing what's important to me for my health, and what's important to me to make sure and to take care on my day, in terms of everything else is going on. Because sometimes we do know that there is one or two things that's very important to you, but that, in life, like what Ayurveda is, like how Dr. Tyler, you mentioned, it seems like, such a life thing. It's a life story. It's the Ayurveda means it is life, knowledge of life. And it is not just science, but it is an art and science. And so that's what it is. So my recommendation would be, plan your daily routines for who you are, where you are, how you are, and make it better each day.
I love it, and I think that's going to be something that we're going to also touch on the next time we talk. Ram, thank you so much. That was great.
What a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really fun. Actually, I really enjoyed it. And I'd love to have you back for part 2. And the other question I'd have is there any way, or how would you like people to reach out to you if they enjoyed this conversation today?
So you can, if you are local to United States, you can call our number 714-730-7919. You can also check our website, www.thehealinggardens.com, with only one G between the healing and the gardens.com. And also you can check our, the Instagram, and just if you have any questions, email us at info@thehealinggardens.com, or call us or text us, and if we could be of any help and we could help you in your health journey and be partner in your health journey, it would be an honor. And just reach out to us.
Amazing. Well, Ram, thank you so much again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tyler.